Under US federal tax law, anyone buying a brand new plug-in car can claim up to $7,500 of tax credits in the year in which they purchased their new plug-in car. At least, that's the very simplest explanation. But dig a little further, and there are actually some caveats to this law. First, you need to have a tax liability equal to or more than the amount you're claiming back. You can't claim a tax credit if you didn't pay at least that amount in taxes in the year you're claiming it. Second, the tax code detailing the tax credits for plug-in cars has planned obsolescence for every manufacturer out there. When each automaker sells its 200,000th plug-in car, federal tax credits for those who buy cars made by that automaker start to roll back, first to half of their original value, then 6 months later to 1/4, and then 6 months later, they're completely gone. Essentially then, the speed at which the incentives drop off depend on how quickly each automaker hits their own 200,000th plug-in vehicle sale. And as soon as that 200,000th plug-in car is sold by an automaker, the rollback in incentives starts at the second calendar quarter after the 200,000th plug-in car was sold. Tesla hit that plug-in car sale in Q3 last year, which meant at the start of this year, incentives for those buying a Tesla dropped from $7,500 to $3,750. On July 1st, it will drop again to $1,875 before vanishing completely on January 1st next year. This drop in tax credits for Tesla customers explains why there was a rush of Tesla sales and deliveries at the very end of last year, because Tesla was trying to squeeze as many full tax credit eligible purchases through as possible before midnight on December 31st. Now, however, it's the turn of Chevrolet, which sold its 200,000th plug-in model in the US in Q4 of last year. Like Tesla, it's got to roll those incentives back. So here's what occurs for those who want to grab a brand new Chevrolet Bolt EV or Chevrolet Volt in the next few weeks. Before I go any further, I'm throwing in a little disclaimer here. I'm not a tax advisor, nor do I want to be. None of the information provided in this video is meant to be tax advice, nor should be treated as such. As with any tax matter, you should put your questions to a licensed accountant or tax advisor, not a YouTuber. That out of the way, let's look at tax credit rollbacks for Chevy customers. Like Tesla customers, the rollback will start in the second quarter following the sale of the 200,000th plug-in, which in this case is April 1st, the start of the second quarter of this year. Before that point, any new Bolt EVs purchased or leased will be eligible for the tax credit, assuming you have a tax liability larger than $7,500. The same is true for the Volt. After that point, you'll be eligible for 1/2 of the original tax credit, just like Tesla customers are right now, before the total tax credit then falls to 1/4 of its original value in October this year. By April 1st, 2020, no federal tax credits will be available if you buy a plug-in Chevrolet. So, should you buy a plug-in Chevy before the tax incentives vanish? Right now, national stock does seem pretty good for both the Bolt EV and the Volt, so it should be pretty easy to get one before March 31st to get the full incentives. And yes, that's right, I did say Volt as well as Bolt EV, because while the Volt is stopping production this year, there are still great numbers of 2019 examples on dealer lots should you decide you want to buy a new one. Given their slow sales rate, you may also be able to get a good deal on one if you're pretty good at negotiating. As to be frank, dealerships don't like new cars sitting on their lots that are no longer made or are soon about to cease production. While the Volt is a little more complex than the Bolt EV, you've got that internal combustion engine to worry about, even if you're only using it occasionally for range extending. Both cars represent a good buy, and there are very few known issues that either car have suffered of late. If getting the full incentive wasn't enough, buying at this time of year can be a good thing for buyers, since it's essentially the off-season for car sales. Things do tend to pick up after April 15th as people look to spend any tax rebates as deposits on new cars, but before that point, well, it's not a very popular time of year to be buying a new car. Why is that important, you ask? Well, if business is slow, dealerships are more likely to be willing to cut you a deal, slashing a healthy amount off MSRP just to get that car off their lot. Are there downsides? Sadly, yes. While you can lease a new plug-in Chevy before April 1st and take advantage of the full federal tax credits, the leasing company claims it and offsets it against your lease fees. Those buying the car outright will have to wait a year or maybe a little more, depending on when they file their taxes, to get that $7,500 tax credit back. In other words, you need to be ready to spend that extra $7,500 up front and then wait a year or so in order to get it back in the form of tax credits if you want to buy the car. If you're leasing though, you're good. That's it. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.